I'm Anthony Bresnikan with Entertainment Weekly, and we're here with the Avengers. We're in the Endgame, the original 6 Avengers, and Kevin Feige, president of Marvel Studios, who's like the Nick Fury in real life. That's been said.
That's
by
Sam.
before.
Sam Jackson.
You bring, but he's dust, so we need you here to help bring corral the
Interim
Avengers.
Fury.
proud to do that.
So you guys can't talk about Endgame, right? So can you tell me just the most outlandish lie you can think of about your character?
Another lightning round?
We've been really killing those lately.
And the only thing you can guarantee about Endgame is that it's going to begin, and then it's going to end at some point.
There will be.
A movie.
No.
Oh, it doesn't even end. It's just going to be continuous.
Yeah.
Surely there's something.
You just leave the
Just
theater
keeps
whenever you
going.
want. The run, it just keeps running.
I'm gonna have PTSD from this junket. I mean, honestly,
Really?
it
You're
is so
doing so
stressful.
It really is.
What?
Really.
You're doing great,
By
kid.
Well,
the
you know
end of at the end of every day, I lie awake at night and I think about all the things
things
I
you can't
almost
say.
said,
Yeah.
and it gives me panic.
Oh, you think you feel that way?
Tell us about it, Mark. How do you feel?
Oh.
You're a repeat offender, Mr. Ruffalo.
I'm not at re-education camp.
What's the biggest one you've spilled?
Well, what
from the
about
past
when you
movies?
stream the first 10 minutes of
That
That might be the highlight. That might be the highlight.
That was
someone had to walk up
Oh,
to you at the premiere.
I saw people running up and down the aisle. What are they doing? And they went to Mark going, okay. Makes sense.
That was the one that got me the call from the up high.
No, but wait. There's
Above me.
some strategy there because everyone laughed so hard during that you could hear it. That's all they could hear was laughing. They went, it must be good.
Well, it sort of turned around on me because when I came to work on Monday, everyone ran up to me. I thought they were coming to scream at me, Barry. And he threw his arms around me and he's like, "That was genius! We got more press than we could have possibly paid for."
Spoilers, right?
Yes, Barry Curtis, one of our
Curtis.
supreme security at Marvel Studios, who now is immortalized as the blockbuster parking lot security guard in Captain Marvel.
Finally.
That's Barry.
Oh, yeah, that's
So
right.
Yes.
who's going to live
Play
stream
your
this
cards
one?
right. There's a cameo in the future.
Personally, what's been the biggest change in you since you began working on the Marvel movies?
My waist size.
Thinner?
I don't know now. I haven't checked.
Fluctuating.
Well, I mean, a
like the weather.
lot of people here have popped out children. Like three of you guys had. Before you, people have had children, major life.
That didn't affect
changing
my
things.
waistline.
Speak for yourself.
Any like people always ask, what do you bring to your character? Is there any part of
I find
the
the
person
lines-
you play?
I find like there was a much clearer kind of this is who the character was in the first time I played it, and then out of just like, oh, I want to do something different, it slowly just became me screwing around and kind of having fun and I don't know. I'm not saying I'm completely the character, but there's more of me in the character now than ever. I think just because that's the most honest place you can operate from, especially in knowing everybody. I feel like our own interpersonal relationships start to echo through, and then what you see, the authenticity of, Iron Man and Captain America, whatever on screen, there is a real friendship with Chris and Robert. So then it starts to just come through whether we like it or not.
Do you all feel that way, like parts of you are in this character?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's impossible not to take a little piece home. Anytime you play a role, when you're in a certain headspace all day, you can't help but take some of that home with you. And sometimes you play roles where that's really exhausting, and it can be like a cave of darkness sometimes that you can't wait to shed, and other times you kind of can't wait to get back to it. And that's the fun thing about the role that, most movies when you're done, you kind of close the book on that when you move on. This one, you just kind of put on hiatus because you're coming back to them, and it's the same way that these are all friends. The character becomes a friend too. You're visiting an old friend.
How do you feel about that? You kind of kicked it all off.
Quiet as it's kept, consciously or otherwise, Kevin, you put us in a position where we lived our lives looking at each other in the eyes and playing these big stakes moments and being in trouble together and saving each other and worrying about each other. So it was kind of like these 6 souls became, it's this impossible to explain thing is getting a little tired. I think it just comes down to the smallness of our lives has been the constant in this massive endeavor, and I think it's impossible not to be humbled by it. Hell, if I've been, then it's completely impossible not to be.
How about you, Scarlett?
These characters have grappled with their with their past, and they have grappled with their destiny. And I think we've seen them over this past 10 years sort of come into their own as like fully realized people with all of their flaws, and have an acceptance of their flaws and actually come to see them as, strengths. And I think that's probably reflective of a lot of the journeys we've all had in the past. I mean, just having 10 years of time and growing and, having ups and downs in our lives and sharing our lives with one another, has been a real pillar of strength in all kinds of crazy times. And, I think that's what the audience also reacts to, is that the characters have grown in a way that feels reflective of their own experience. I mean, I met this girl yesterday who was like a Black Widow super fan. She was awesome. And she was like, I saw the first movie with you. Yeah, I first saw Black Widow when I was 6, and now she was, 15. Wow. And she was like, I grew up with you, and it's so exciting. And, I was thinking, God, she was a little girl, now she's this, beautiful young woman. And, she probably feels also like the journey of these characters coming into their own is very much a part of her own experience. And I think that's how we kind of have reflected, ourselves within the characters as well.
People are so emotionally invested in all of these characters. Anything you tweet about them or any hint in a trailer that they might be in jeopardy, and like people get really worked up about it. It's kind of amazing to see. Like, you're all out there, you see it yourselves. Does that feel odd, or does it feel moving or powerful? What's it like seeing that?
A little scary. You become more careful. You have a bigger responsibility, but you also see kind of the power of storytelling. And the one thing I think about these movies that's really exciting is they're forward leaning in the narrative of good versus evil. And so we're able to transcend some of the divisive narratives that are happening now. I mean, the one thing is that these stories do kind of touch a lot of different kinds of people, different kinds of belief, and I really believe that.
And it's about coming together too.
Yeah,
That's the
it is. It's about
core of
unifying,
Avengers, right?
and it's about people who have Civil War is the ultimate example of that, And I always
And look at them now.
yeah, I know. They love each other. And I always feel like somehow we're always 1 or 2 steps ahead of the political scene.
Yeah.
And and the bad guys win sometimes.
Yeah.
And we lose good people. And
there's
unless you
sacrifice.
lose, sometimes you don't value winning. Winning doesn't mean anything.
That's true.
And I feel like that's been this final journey into our end game.
I feel like you walked
Nice.
perilous.
I mean, that is a redemptive act happening in real time. I think you're back at 0 now, buddy.
There's no red left in your ledger, right?
Was that rolling?
That's what no take 2 now.
We're not just hanging out here.
We're just going to come in and cover it now.
That was beautiful.
Well, Scarlett, last time we had you guys all together, we were talking about Black Widow and the lack of female superheroes. What part do you feel that Natasha and Black Widow have played in changing the way people look at female heroes?
I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know that I have total perspective on it. But the character has certainly grown in a way where we've seen her, I think Favreau got a little offended when I called her a sexy secretary. He was like, well, she was undercover. I was like, okay, yeah, definitely that was true. But, she, I think through through Avengers and then certainly with Winter Soldier, had an opportunity to become a woman who realized, oh, I haven't really made any active choices in my life, and was really coming to terms with the fact, as S.H.I.E.L.D. disintegrated, and certainly now after Civil War with the Avengers, also kind of disintegrating and being in all these different places and everybody kind of having their own reactions to that, she's come into her own as a woman, saying, oh, I actually, who am I? And where is my, what do I want and what do I need? out of my relationships and also out of my own self. And she's someone is understanding her own self-worth. And that is such a powerful journey, I think, to see anybody take, but certainly to see a woman on screen represented in that way, a flawed superhero with a sort of, a kind of gray moral compass, coming to terms with what's happened to her. And that's happened over, the course of these films, ending obviously finally with this Endgame, and I think in a pretty impactful way. But, it's definitely, I think, shown some sort of path for, these other female superheroes to be able to kind of walk down. I certainly don't take credit for that, though.
But you played a part.
There was a time not so long ago that there was a belief that there couldn't be a leading female superhero.
Yeah.
Not by this guy, by the way.
No, I know.
Ever, but that was industry standard thinking.
And if they were, it was strictly like sexualized. And,
Well, the secretary with
yeah.
the skill set.
Yeah, exactly. But I think Black Widow helped change it a lot and change the way people looked at
Yeah,
those.
For
you
sure.
did
And
that.
honestly, I think Joss was a huge part of that too. He just is such a, huge believer of strong female characters and storylines, and he really celebrated the characters' flaws and wanted to bring them to light. I say flaws, not really, but what she perceives to be. And, that was just having his support and, him wanting to shine the light on that character really made a huge difference.
So, part of the journey is the end. We said goodbye to Stan Lee after a big, long life this year. Do you guys have any poignant memories of him or stories of meeting him? I know he didn't always shoot his cameos with you guys around, but have you all gotten a Stan Lee encounter?
I'm going to make this joke again.
It's okay.
But-
I love it. I'll act like I never heard it. Go ahead. What's the story?
Playing Hulk is like my generation's Hamlet. We're all going to get a chance to do it. And so it's been, and so I was really nervous about, would I please him? And I didn't meet him until the premiere of Avengers. And I kind of walked up to him sheepishly, and he saw me. He's like, "Hey!" And he's like, "You got it, kid." And I was like, "Oh, that's amazing! Thank you, Mr. Lee." But I was so nervous about, other than Downey and Kevin, like, I was so nervous that he would be happy with what I'd done.
How about you, Robert, on the first Iron Man? Is that when you met him for the first time?
My mind goes to in Civil War. Rhodey and Tony are having a moment at the end, and he's like a UPS guy or a FedEx guy, and so he was outside the glass, and it was just this thing of like, it's like all of us. He's a really big deal, but he's just another schmuck who we have to get his coverage in the can too. I'm like, and roll sound. He's like, I have a delivery for Tony Stank. And they're like, great. And then it went completely downhill after that. And I was like, not only is that my memory through the glass, but also I am exactly like him. It all goes downhill after take one. You got to capture it before I tire.
Please.
You're right. Actually, take two is my strong take. But we should stop after one.
How about you, Scarlett?
And he guided it back to himself. Nothing's changed.
I also had a similar moment to Mark when I saw him. I think it was after the Iron Man 2 premiere, and I didn't know how the audience or anybody would react to this beloved character and my interpretation of her, and especially because I wasn't originally cast, and so I also had like a lot of feelings about that. But yeah, I had a lot of feelings about it, and I saw him also in the theater, and he was very excited, and I, of course, was like, I had a big sigh of relief after that. Just he was so happy with that. That he got to see that character on screen, and it was pretty cool. You must have a lot of memories of him, Kevin.
Well,
You spent a lot of
yes,
time with him.
lots and lots. And the amazing thing is, just as you've all said, he said the right thing to the right person at all times.
Yeah.
Every interaction was what one's dream interaction with Stan Lee would be. He made that come true every single time. I've talked before about, he left me a voicemail once in like 2004 or something. I never got a voicemail from Stan Lee, and I kept it for years until I think the phone disintegrated. But it was "Fearless Feige, Stan Lee here." I listened to it over and over and over, and that's sort of what he was always like, and always supportive. We've put a video together that I'm not sure when we're going to put it out, in the home video window probably. But it is we'd never done this before, a behind the scenes of every cameo Stan did, all the B-roll that was shot, and his stand-ups there. And, his passing was very emotional for all of us, but it suddenly all came back to me just last week when I watched it. It's tremendous, and it's, he outside Disney Hall that first time, and the Tony Stank FedEx, and the deleted cameo, the first cameo he did on Avengers, when you two were in the cafe outside.
See, I was going back to Fantastic Four. I have the first time I met him was in 2004 when I was doing Johnny Storm, and the day that he was on set, we actually happened to have a B-roll crew on set that day for whatever reason, and one of my first interactions with him, it's all caught on B-roll, and I've found the footage, and it's just at the time he was, I was very early in my career. It was the biggest role I'd ever done. To me, someone like him was so overwhelming for me, and he was so, true Stan Lee format, just so full of life and just so kind and gregarious, and just made me feel right at home. And yeah, we have the entire exchange on film somewhere, and it just
I tell the story, and the story actually is from Fantastic Four 1 in Toronto, when he came to do his cameo, and suddenly you couldn't find the crew. Like, Stan was getting ready in the trailer, and you look around, and we're in the middle of the city, and half the crew is gone. And I went, what? And the AD said they all ran to the comic shop on Queens, whatever, to buy comics to have him sign. And sure enough, he came in, he shot, and then he signed every single one. And that was sort of the beginning of what I call the national holiday every time he came. Every time he came to set.
Did he ever talk about how, that was his ultimate vision to have this stuff all up there on screen, or
he was always so, despite how gregarious and taking credit and I should have more role, he was so humble. And he always just talked about how overwhelming it was that this had all gotten this big. And right up until even the last time I saw him, all I'd want to do is talk about him creating the characters and how amazing that was to co-create all these legends, these icons. And he'd go, yeah, but the cameos. The cameos. I swear, it's what he was most proud of.
That's his curtain call. You don't get a curtain call if you're writing comics. You get it. How about you, Jeremy?
It's funny. I have a lot of experience with me. I aspire to be as strong-minded, and the guy has lived an amazing life, and he's still always stick with me because I spent a lot of time with him more recently, and when you're that, you're so full of life, right? And when you spend time with him, you just know this guy is just burning a fire of life. He's got a great sense of humor, a smart mind, and I hope and aspire to be anywhere half of what he was as a man. Right? It's really, really fantastic. I really enjoyed my time with him.
Cool. How about you, Chris?
Just his sort of childlike wonder and attitude and enthusiasm, there's something that every time he'd come on the set with all of these sort of stories you hear of him coming on, and you'd want to talk about something more kind of what it all means and so on, and it was just like, no, I'm just telling stories and we're having fun and this is entertainment, and there's a deeper meaning and a message and so on, which he achieved so beautifully. But the childlike nature about him, I thought, oh well, it's good. We can all just stay big kids forever, and he's the perfect example.
So some movies come and go they're gone in 1 week. These movies have endured for 10 years. I think they'll last for 30 beyond. What do you want people to see in these movies 30 years from now? What do you want them to feel? What do you hope they'll think about them?
I mean, I'm always amazed with the ability that Kevin has had to house this giant tapestry of all these woven plot lines. I just don't think it's ever going to happen again. I don't think anyone has the ability to kind of launch all these different rockets and then kind of years down the road have them all kind of explode at once. It's just kind of the planning and the care and the subtlety to it is just
choreography.
It's just I just don't know that it'll happen again, and I take a lot of pride that I get to have a small part of it.
Yeah, I wonder what the ripple effect would be. of it. Like in 30 years, like, oh, like look what Feige's done. Like, how do you do like a series of film, right? 22 films, right?
I hope they're still talking
How do you
about
do
it.
that?
That'd be nice.
That's what I'm saying. I
already
think
been
I
12, it's been
absolutely,
10, 12.
absolutely could guarantee that. I mean, it's impossible not to.
Yeah, there's very few
right?
franchises that have. I mean, like you think about it's like Star Wars. I mean,
Which was
Indiana
3
Jones,
films.
maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
James
it's
Bond,
like
maybe.
such a small.
Bond,
right,
for sure.
Bond for
Yeah.
sure.
Yes.
Mission Impossible, but they're not.
But
the
that's not
breadth of
yeah.
this is
Yeah.
so
But even
massive.
the Bond doesn't have the continuity.
That's right.
that is-
Complexity,
Bond is
too.
kind of a
Mhm.
constant reinvention. And
Yeah.
Star Wars has a similar continuity, but that was a big start and stop thing. This all took place in a finite amount of time, and that finite amount of time is a decade, which isn't even a snugget. That's a huge landscape that he managed to make this unbelievable ribbon of,
amazing. Really is.
continuity.
Well, following the footsteps of what Stan and Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby were doing when it was a small group of them in a bullpen in Manhattan, and having fun. And it's been a relatively small group of us at Marvel Studios for a decade or more. And the advantage we have is we have real people that can inhabit these characters and that the audiences fall in love with and that we fall in love with. And it's what's fun for me on the tail end is I'm intimidated by actors. I'm intimidated by their ability to do what they do because I got these cameras on me and I'm shuffling and I can't and I don't like it. So it's almost like a whole other species. And when they're in their costumes, I get intimidated because I'm standing in front of these superheroes that I've been dreaming about. So it takes me about 10 years to get to realize what's going on.
Finally, doesn't give a shit anymore.
With people as people, and these 6 in particular, and starting to talk to them creatively. And as they've all gotten which even from the start, but certainly as the films have continued, a stronger and stronger voice in how the characters and how the movies are made. And then I can talk, because if we're going to talk about story and talk about the movies, okay, good. That's language I can understand on that creative level, and that's happened with everybody sitting around here. And it's been the pleasure of my life with these 6 in particular.
Are you really intimidated by me?
Yes, in your pajamas. Particularly when you're wearing the mocap.
Yeah, the mocap.
When you're wearing that, particularly intimidating.
You gotta bring it back.
I got
that. Bring it back. It's unbelievable.
I'll just say this. I'll say this, and
no, wait.
you're not gonna like this. I'm noticing over time, even just the last couple days, look into Kevin's eyes. He's looking at us lovingly, like a proud parent.
What did I used to look like?
You used to look like you were concerned, like it was DEFCON 5, and you were carrying the football, but you couldn't open it. I'm just saying, it's really nice that this has really been your labor of love, and you look over it like a conscientious parent. And now I see fear in your eyes, but before that, I was just seeing there is love in your eyes and in your heart for all of this and for all of us. And I think you've just loved us up.
Back at you,
Very
man.
nice. It's very nice. I don't have any regrets creatively. I do regret that we haven't had more time around tables together and stuff. Maybe as we begin the junket. And thank you, Anthony, for putting us together.
Thank you
and
for
I'll
being
nerd
here
out
doing
for the last episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Picard sits down with his crew at their weekly poker game, and they go, oh, and he didn't attend the poker games. Why am I talking about Star Trek? And and the crew is like, oh, he's sitting down, and they go, oh, Captain, is everything okay? He goes, yeah, I'm doing something I should have done a long time ago. And it wouldn't be poker with this team; it would be Boggle, and I would be terrible. So
Is that the Avenger game, Boggle?
Boggle,
I mean, yeah.
but something I should have done a long time ago.
Well,
Spend more time with
thank
this.
you so much, guys.
Thank you.
I really
We
appreciate
did
it.
have
Not just-
Rome.
I know. Talk about Rome.
We did have Rome.
I don't want to hear about
That was
Rome.
a high.
Rome was
That was the best
That was-
press
that
to
was-
it.
the Avengers junket. The Avengers 1 junket was the first and only junket I went on the entire press tour. And it was an amazing experience, and I learned, this is hard work, glamorous hotels, first class. No, it's hard. It's nonstop hard work, and I appreciated that ever since. But there was one night in Rome,
I feel like
very late into
only
the
like
night.
an I survived that. Like that was.
That was
Yes,
amazing.
where we also
Years
were
of
bonded
work.
and talked a lot about the future and talked
Yes,
a lot
we
about
did.
what could happen if.
Wow.
And now here we are, and everybody wants us to end this, but it's
Yeah, they're gonna
it's been
snap their
exciting.
fingers and turn me to dust in a second.
Many thanks.
Thank you so
broke
much.
into the bar.
Thank you not just for this, but all the time.